Tradesman built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. So what made you want to go to college to become a plumber?
Good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, as you know, not a lot of tradespeople go to college, especially being a plumber. That's not really the route. The route is either you go to trade school, you go an apprenticeship program. But the reason why I wanted to go to college is because one, no one in my family ever went to college. I had the opportunity to do so. And in high school, I had very good grades. So I figured, you know what, let me go ahead and check it out and see what I can learn, because a lot of people, they're good in business, but they're not good plumbers, or they're good plumbers, not good in business. So what I really wanted to do is help my father. I work with my father and his company. So I wanted to just kind of bring in a different dynamic to the table. And I felt like college was maybe the best way to go about it. I'll be graduating here very shortly, which is 4 years of school, as well as working on my plumbing journey. So it's been great. But as far as why I went to college, was mostly just to learn the business side of it. University of Houston has a great business program.
Yeah, you didn't go to a little school.
No.
You didn't go to a little junior college.
Yeah.
You went to a legit big college.
Yeah, all 4 years. I went straight to the University of Houston, and it's been great. I've met a lot of people, great connections. And one of the things I really like about the University of Houston, as far as their entrepreneurship kind of teachers, professors go, you have to own a business to be a professor. It's not like, oh, this guy just studied it and, he's there. Because I believe that if I'm going to learn from someone, they should at least know what they're talking about in the sense of real life examples. Because I know some people, they say college might be a scam because, they never really experienced what it's like to have a business. But that's something that I learned that I really value as far as my education goes, because I'm learning from people that have had businesses, that have had failures. And it's been a great, great opportunity for me. And like I said, I'm right there near the finish line, and it's been great. And I feel like I've learned a lot in the process.
Now, when you went in to register, what'd they think about you being a plumber?
I talk about it a lot. As far as the icebreakers go, as far as University of Houston, I did try to get into their entrepreneurship program. And I spoke to them about what my plans were with being a plumber, because I had already started my apprenticeship before that. I think I was 2 years into my apprenticeship. I started at 16, and they kind of laughed at me, kind of like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? There's, this is a whole different ball game than what you're going for, which I understand. I didn't take it bad. They just, again, it's something that you just don't really hear too often. And I would say they didn't really take me serious for the most part, because again, plumber in college, what are you doing? Why aren't you in trade school? Why aren't you doing this? But I just had a different purpose for why I was there, and I just felt like it was just a great experience to have overall.
That's pretty good. So did you know when you were in high school you wanted to be a plumber?
I would say back during the freeze, which was in Texas, big freeze, which was what, 2019?
2001, I think.
Sorry.
Wasn't it?
2021?
Let's say 2001.
Yeah,
2021.
That's too early.
Yeah. It wasn't 19. You were still like 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah. So it was around that time, and so I was graduating right around there. And then during that freeze, I was working with my father, and I would see people went weeks without water. And we were their superheroes. We were their everything. And I realized this is what I want to do. It can be dirty at times, and it can be hard, especially here in Texas, being in the attics, going on your hands and knees and your belly at times. But I knew that there's opportunity to actually be a difference in someone's life. And of course, doing things morally and ethically, which sometimes there's a thin line that you have to kind of balance on. But I saw the benefits of people. They would buy us lunch, or they'd be preparing sandwiches for us. And that experience for me meant everything to me, because I didn't feel like I could get that working at an office. I didn't feel like I could get that working in a cubicle 8-9 hours out of my day. I just wasn't really interested in that. I was just interested in being out in the world, experiencing different people, making connections. I've met people who are lawyers. I've met people who they have their own dogs training businesses. And I think that difference in people is really what drove me into plumbing, because I'm a huge talker. As far as my content creating goes, I'm a huge talker. I like talking a lot. So I just felt like plumbing let me meet different people and really explore my communicative behavior to myself.
Okay, so I love this. When you got out of high school, you knew that you were going to go to college. Mm-hmm. You knew you were going to still work with your dad.
Correct.
That way you had part-time job. You were making money. You were doing things. Now, did you really work part-time, or the days you worked, did you work enough that it was pretty much a full-time job?
It's pretty much a full-time job.
Yeah.
As far as college has been, for the last 4 years, I've done 5 classes every semester, which is a full-time student. Mm-hmm. And I have done plumbing on my off days. Days I've gone to class. I've been in my work uniform in class, just sitting there, smelling like sewage sometimes, just kind of looking around, hoping no one sees me, spraying some cologne on me, and weekends as well. And it's been a journey of balancing, being able to delegate my task efficiently. And it's been a journey of patience, I would say, patience and perseverance, because there were times when I was like, I don't need to be here in college. Right. I should be focusing more on plumbing. But I knew that there was a bigger picture, and I felt like I kept my tunnel vision kind of clear as to what my goals were, because there was a reason why I went to college, which was to learn the business side of it. And then there was a reason why I was a plumber during that time, because I didn't want to waste any time, because 4 years out of the trade, that's a good amount of time. That's the difference between, having your hours ready to take your test and all that great stuff. So I just knew that I had to balance my time efficiently and effectively. And it was a great journey for me.
Now, you just recently passed your Journeyman exam.
Correct.
So, while you're going to college, you take your Tradesman exam, you pass it. You take your Journeyman exam and pass it. And now you got to wait 4 more years to take your master's exam.
Yes. That itself is a little bit different than what my dad experienced, because my dad, back then, he only had to wait 1 year. And before, from journeyman to masters. And so I have to wait 4 years. And again, it's a journey of, for me, from start to finish, like a 10-year journey. People don't realize that. And customers especially don't realize that. They think just someone comes and you're just a regular guy that just goes and charges them. But there's a lot of knowledge and learning that goes through your entire career as a plumber. It's not something that happened from 1 year to another. It's not something that happened from 1 year to 2 years. It's something that you went through the apprenticeship, you went through the tradesman, journeyman, and then ultimately masters and so on, right? I know you asked someone, what is your goal as a plumber? And they said, to become a master plumber, that's like my ultimate goal. And you're like, that's not the best goal.
Not enough.
Yeah, and that really resonated with me as well, because for me, that's what it was. But because I was just a 16-year-old kid, that I was like, master plumber, that would be great. But now that I'm less than 4 years now, because I have my journeyman license, it just feels like, again, I should be aiming for the moon, the stars. I should be aiming for more, because yes, the master is a great milestone to have, but there is still more work to be done after the 4 years. It's something that's going to follow me for the rest of my life.
But I like how you're looking at it. You're looking at it as a milestone, not the end game.
Correct.
Not your final goal.
Correct.
So what is your final goal?
Great question. I've really just wanted to create a good business, and that can mean many things, right? It can mean profit. It can mean this and that. Really, my main goal is to set us apart from any other company as far as customer service goes, as far as their experience that customers have with us, because a lot of bigger companies, they can pay marketing, they can outdo all those things, but if I can make sure that I resonate with each and every customer, I feel like that would be great. Being able to create stuff like my own podcast, being able to create stuff like that where I can meet different people. I feel like that's mostly my end goal, is to just create a community and just bring a lot of people together. And ultimately, I do want to be kind of the model for future generations of plumbers, especially being someone that got into the trade so young. And we need more people in the trade. I don't think anyone can stress it enough as far as plumbers, especially in Texas. And I try to help out as many people as I can. And that's really where my joy comes as far as content creating goes. It's just helping others obtain their goals of being plumbers. Because some people, it's the difference between, is food going to go on the table or not? You know, it's the difference between, are we going to rent our entire lives, or are we going to own a house? Because there's so much opportunity. And I think that if I'm able to at least help one person change their lives as far as plumbing goes, I think that's enough for me.
I like that. So did you start working with your dad before you had your apprentice card and all that? Because like my son started with me when he was like 13 years old.
Yeah, I actually, funny story. My mom, she nicknamed me Pollo, which is chicken in Spanish. And the reason why she called me that, believe it or not.
Hablo español.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about the Spanish, and it's pretty crispy. But as far as that nickname goes, believe it or not, she called me Pollo because I was very shy. I was a super shy kid, to where I would hide behind my mom's legs when she would be walking around. I wouldn't want to talk to anyone. And I didn't really talk to my dad when I was young at all. Again, he was working on the field, and I don't blame him for it. He was making sure food was on the table. He had bills to pay, and I respect that. But again, we just didn't have that connection. And so when I was about 4 to 5 years old, I would say closer to 5, he told my mom, Myra, why doesn't Byron talk to me? She's like, well, you have to connect with him. And so he would take me to Home Depot, and Home Depot is literally right around the corner from our house. And as soon as we left the driveway and turned the corner, I would start crying. I'd be like, I want to go with my mom. And he was like, nope, you're going to stay with me. You know, we're going to have fun. It's going to be great and all that stuff. And then he would buy me a candy at Home Depot at the checkout. And to this day, I still get a good snack whenever I go with him to Home Depot. So it's kind of that tradition.
You bet.
And then he takes the dad tax where he takes a piece from it. But I think since then, I've really just been riding along with him, and I was kind of intrigued with the world of plumbing. I like to say that I was connected to plumbing since a very young age. Stories like when I was a baby and I would be crying, the only way that I would stop crying as a newborn was if my dad picked me up, my dad himself, took me to a faucet, opened the water, and let the water run. If my mom held me and tried to do it, it wouldn't work. It had to be my dad. And at the time, my dad was studying for his master's exam. So my dad challenged himself, being someone from Guatemala. He wanted to take the exam in English. He didn't want to have to translate back and forth. He wanted to take it in English and pass it in English. And so he was reading out loud. And so I like to tell people I've been connected with plumbing since I was a baby. You know, but as far as working with my dad, I would say maybe around 10 years old. 10 years old, I've been riding with him. And then there were customers that they were like, oh, that's child labor, child abuse, and all that stuff. And my dad's like, I try to get him away. He doesn't want to go away from here, you know. And I've had other jobs. You know, I haven't just been a plumber. I worked at Kroger, Cane's, retail. I did tutoring at one point. I've tried to do different things, but ultimately, I guess the road just led back to plumbing.
What kind of tutoring did you do?
I tutored in science and math in high school. I've always been good with all that stuff. So naturally, I was like, you know what, let me teach other people. I've always enjoyed teaching, but I just feel like I wouldn't be a teacher. I don't see myself being a teacher, but I do see myself teaching. As far as teacher goes, I mean like in a school. But as far as teaching goes, I enjoy teaching a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's good for a journeyman because you've got to be able to teach apprentices and teach them right from wrong, you know, good from bad, teach them safety, teach them code. There's a lot of different things to teach. So there's always teaching involved.
Correct.
So the day you walked out of high school, I'm assuming you worked with your dad that summer.
Correct.
You already knew then you were going to go to college. Did you still think, well, I'm still going to become a plumber?
Going into college, I already had the idea and the mindset that I'm going to be a plumber. I already had the mindset. Going into college, I knew that's what I wanted to do. The way that college is structured is more teaching you to work for a company rather than having your own company, even the entrepreneurship classes, which is a downside, I would say, but you still learn something. You still are able to know how the numbers work, how they match together. One of my best classes that I took was managerial accounting. The reason is it's more of like service-based in a way because they talked about, you know, your overheads, how to calculate your overheads, how to calculate your time, labor, all that great stuff, and materials, because a lot of people don't know that. You hear overheads all the time. Oh, overheads plus your labor and materials, but what does that even mean? What does depreciation mean? How do you even calculate that? And I think that definitely through college, that's been one of my most beneficial classes for sure.
What's the most lame class you had to take in college?
Applied buyer behavior. So it's a class where we had to learn how buyers react to different things, different stimuli. And so we talked about stimuli the entire semester. Oh, if they reach the stimuli threshold and this and this and that. It was the most boring class that I could ever possibly take. And I think I gained, I don't think I gained anything, honestly. They would show us commercials and they would be like, oh, let's analyze this commercial. Why did it work? Well, they did something funny. That's why I watched it. It didn't take that much, kind of mental thinking. It wasn't too critical of a class. And I do enjoy a challenge as far as my classes go, because I'm like, if I'm going to go to college and spend this money, I want to at least challenge myself a bit and not just be sitting down and just, twiddling my fingers, wondering what's next.
Okay. So have you always done residential service plumbing, or what do you do?
Mostly residential service is really where we focus on. We've been recently tapping in a little bit more into commercial, but it's a different ballgame, I would say, especially being in Houston. You have those older buildings in downtown, and knowing how the pipes run and understanding what the plumbers did back then, that's a challenge.
Oh, it is. I've done some big remodels in Dallas that you walk in a 50-story office building that's been there 80 years, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, you just have no idea. Even something as simple as like a drain cleaning. You have to realize how the drains go, where is this line taking you? How far can you take your cable? There's so much that you have to calculate whenever you're doing commercial that sometimes if you've only done residential, it's going to take a little bit
it's a
before you get there.
Big game change.
Yeah, but as far as residential goes, that's what we've done. We've dealt with huge mansions, small, tiny, motorhomes and all that great stuff. And that's really been it. But my dad has a very good resume as far as plumbing goes. He's done high rise. He's worked in new construction commercial, new construction residential service, commercial, you name it. He's done it all.
Similar to me. I've told everybody there's nothing in plumbing I haven't done.
Yeah. And I would say that I do feel at a disadvantage because I don't have that experience. Again, every plumber's journey is different. Not everyone is going to have that experience. And I do feel like sometimes plumbers, unfortunately, look down on me because I lack that other experience. But I try to learn what I can. And again, if there's an opportunity where I can do something different, I'm not going to shy away from it.
Tom Brady didn't play baseball. He still was a really good football player.
Right.
You can do one thing and do it better than everybody.
Yeah.
So don't ever think just because you don't have the experience. I think you can gain knowledge from that experience.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't be amazing at what you do.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about that the other day about specializing and being able to specialize in one category as far as plumbing goes, because people don't realize plumbing is not just drain, waste, vent, or just drain cleanings, or just faucet installations, or whatever you think of plumbing. It's an entire spectrum of different things where plumbing falls under. And so people say, I don't want to be a plumber because I'm going to have to deal with sewage. Well, personally, I like those jobs.
Right.
One, because they can quickly turn into a very good payday.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, especially here in Texas where you have to tunnel under the house and all that great stuff. But, again, plumbing is this entire spectrum.
And hold on, there's people around the country think we're crazy because we tunnel up under houses.
Yeah, I've done a couple videos, and those videos have done great, but they're like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just break the floor? Well, they've got tile, and they've got all these things. They don't want to deal with all this dust in their house. That's stress. It's already stressful that they can't use their toilets and bathrooms,
Okay, so back to the big spectrum of plumbing, because, and go ahead, you can take it. So, when I look at plumbing, I call it swag. Sewers, waters, and gases.
Okay.
And to me, that's pretty much plumbing. What all do you see in plumbing?
I see every little thing as far as installations goes. For me, installations is one thing, because one person, if they wanted to, they could honestly just do installations. Someone wants to install faucets, they can install it, whatever. Some people can do water heaters. Water heaters, I feel like, is its own separate kind of level in the spectrum, because Some people, they don't know how to properly install a water heater or a tankless. You know, you have tank and tankless. You have to specialize, know how each manufacturer goes, because different manufacturers require different things, and the diagnostics part of it, because sometimes they unfortunately do give out, you know, before the time does come.
You bet.
But it doesn't always need to be swapped out. If you're able to kind of specialize more in the water heater aspect of it, you can save the customer a good amount of money. Warranted. There are times when you have to unfortunately swap out, but if you're able to kind of specialize more in that, then you're able to, you know, kind of work with them a bit. Another thing is drain waste vents. I think takes a different mentality to kind of understand how everything is going. You know, especially I think the dollhouse in Texas is a great example of that. Some people do very good in that. Some people struggle a lot in that, right? It all kind of depends in your experience. Those new construction guys, they'll do the dollhouse any day. Well, those people like me that just done residential and just have seen kind of the damages that have happened, it took a little bit of practice. And then water installations, there's people that just specialize in repipes. That's all they do. So it's just, for me, I look at every single type of different category, kind of like a micro portion of plumbing as a whole. But I think swag is a very cool one.
It works well. This video is sponsored by High Level. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield. So when you were younger working with your dad, what was it that made you enjoy plumbing? I think other than just being with your dad.
I was just about to say that.
I get that part.
As far as plumbing goes, and what I enjoyed about it the most was the freedom, because people don't realize there's a good amount of freedom in plumbing, especially if you have your own company. And if that's your goal, I think it's a great goal to have. I think that there is a lot of opportunity to have, and there's a lot of freedom to have. Warranted, there's a trade-off. You can have freedom, but maybe you spend time with your family, but you're going to leave some jobs on the table. Vice versa. If you go to the jobs, you're going to not spend as much time with your family. But you have decisions to make that can help you have a better lifestyle as far as plumbing goes. And I think I really enjoy that. I think that's something that I realized from a young age, that opportunity is there to do that.
I love that. Take just a minute and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Right. So my name is Byron Gutierrez, and I run the Drain domain on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. On YouTube, I mostly focus on the Drain Domain podcast, which my kind of main goal is to highlight the stories of different plumbers in the nations. And I've even done Australia, so I guess the world at this point, because I feel like everyone has a story in plumbing. You know, like I said, everyone's journey is different. Everyone has done different things, and there's people that they shy away from plumbing because they don't feel like they're worthy, I guess, of being a plumber. And I think that it's important to highlight those stories, and something that I just enjoy doing. I've met amazing people. Some of my closest friends right now are people that I've met through the podcast, and that networking is great. And then as far as my social media goes, I do highlight my jobs, but I like to teach people as well. There's people that they've told me, I'm going to take my exam, you know, what do you recommend? What tips do you have? And then I'm like, watch this video, do this. You know, this can help you out. And being able to see that weeks later, months later, they text me back and say, I passed it. That's very rewarding to me.
And you work with your dad. What company is that? And where y'all at in Houston? What all do y'all serve?
Yeah, so we mostly do Southwest Houston, but we do pretty much the greater Houston area. And we've even had customers that have been in Houston and have moved to San Marcos. And we tell them, like, hey, it might be cheaper to get someone closer to San Marcos. They're like, nope, we want Byron Plumbing, which is our company, to go and do that. And it's been great. We've been in operation since 2006. So I was 3 years old at the time, going on to 20 years now. And I think that it's been a great journey for my father. But, you know, it's time for me to kind of start transitioning into the, Dad, if you want to go fishing, you can go fishing. You know, you've done your time.
So why did your dad start a plumbing company?
Great question, and great story to go with that as well. Fortunately, he's not here to tell that story, so I'll do my best. But there was a lot of doubt with him being a plumber or getting into his licenses. At the time, he had me and my older sister, and so he was trying to provide for us. And at the time, I think he said he was getting paid $14 an hour as kind of an apprentice. And they said, as soon as you get your journeyman, we'll pay you $4 more. You're not going to pass it. You're not going to do all these things. And so my dad was like, I'm going to pass it. And my dad didn't even have $100 to take the bus ride over to Austin and take the exam. He asked his boss, hey, can I borrow some money? And the boss just laughed at him. Yeah, here you go. My dad came back, gave him back the $100 and said, I passed my exam. And then the boss says, oh, no, my brother's going to get mad that I'm paying you that much. I'm not going to pay you that much. I'll give you a 50-cent raise. And so my dad was like, wow, like I was really relying on this, and that's why I busted my butt to go ahead and do this. And that's really where the story of the Journeyman came. And then with the Masters, my dad, I guess, realized early on that he was a very good problem solver. That's really important with plumbing, especially if you do residential, because you're going to be in situations where you might have to do things different than what someone would like you to do, as far as, let's say, repiping a house. Some people would find it easier to just unthread, go. We might have to reroute it because in the future it might be different, do this and this. He has a different vision that I really want to learn, and kind of hopefully I inherit that vision as well. But I guess he learned early on that he's a very good problem solver, and there's a lot of money to be made in solving problems, especially as a plumber. And I think that's when he transitioned into his own company, and people told him that it wasn't that possible, that it was hard, it was difficult, and my dad stood up to the challenge. And there's been a lot of people, huge blessings that he's gotten from people along the way. Luckily, the company that he was working for beforehand, before he started his own company, they referred a lot of people to him, customers that are still our customers to this day. So he wasn't alone. He wasn't alone as far as the journey goes, which some people, they start bottom.
Oh, I know. Trust me. That's the way I did it, so I get it.
No one's referring jobs. You're kind of wondering when the phone's going to ring. What do I have to do? But luckily, my dad had that benefit.
I like that. So along the way, what has become your favorite things to do in plumbing?
I really enjoy repipes. I really, really enjoy repipes as far as potable water goes, overheads. Because, one, I feel like it's an art being able to find the most efficient way to route a water line. I find it pretty neat to know how we can go down the walls and minimize damage. Because there's some people that they'll go and they'll tear out your entire house.
Oh, yeah.
And, boom, 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 here, you're done. But it's a different kind of mentality that you have to have, again, to know how am I going to do this as efficient as possible. And unfortunately, I've seen other bigger companies do horrible jobs. We had one customer, which was after the freeze as well, and I don't know if the guy was licensed, whoever they contracted, and they left halfway. They got their deposit, and they started the job, and I'm telling you, you can't even put sheetrock down because they just did a whole loop outside the wall. Totally like a foot out the wall.
Jeez.
And this lady, unfortunately, she was even handicapped, so she couldn't even kind of maneuver around her house because she had pipes all over. And that was really unfortunate. And then that's also what pushed me to get my license. I'm like, I'm going to be qualified to do this. I'm going to do what I have to do to get my license, because when I go to someone's house, I want to wear my license proud. I want to show them that I did this. This is who's coming to your house. You can check us in, the Texas State website, whatever you have to do, which I really recommend people to do, especially if you're a homeowner. Know who's coming to your house. And
do that in every state, not just Texas. Texas makes it easy.
Yeah.
The TSBPE website
Correct.
is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think that, there's people on social media that say, are you even a licensed plumber? Look me up. TSBP.
I had plumbers bust my balls about a video I made about a product they repped. And I told them, I said, this product sucks. Then they started bashing me. So then I went to their website, started looking at them. I'm like, well, I want to find out how long they've had licenses. None of they own companies in multiple states, and all their licenses are expired or taken away or whatever happened.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
Having your license. It's not you got your license, you're done. No, you have to have good conduct in the real world with civilians and all that great stuff. You have to make sure everything's in check, your insurances, renewing it, continue education. I know plumbers that have been there for many years who they're there and they're like halfway awake, right?
I'll tell you what, I used to teach continuing ed. And I'm really lucky because the first time I taught it, I was in the union, and they said, hey, you're going to teach it this Saturday. And they needed a new instructor. So even when I went down to take my license, I mean to get approved as an instructor, it was just me and Vernon. So, I mean, it was a neat deal. I got approved. The first time I teach it, the company that I'm working at, one of the vice presidents of the company, 4 of the top superintendents in the company, and one of my best friends in the company are in my class. And I walked in, I thought I was going to throw up. But I just taught my class. And the vice president of the company came up to me after it was done. He said, "That is the best continuing education class I've ever sat in." I'm like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Man, I was scared to death."
I don't even know what I said.
I walk in there and you're here, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And he said, "That was phenomenal." He said, "You made it exciting. You made it fun. It wasn't boring."
Yeah.
He said a lot of people just sit there and just read the book, and I'm like, "Oh no, I can't do that."
Oh yeah.
So
I definitely think if I do end up doing that in the future, if that's what's in plan for me, I would try to make it as engaging as possible, because it's something you have to do every year, whether you like it or not. You know, you can't get your license renewed if you can't. And speaking about teachers, I did want to ask you, have you met Johnny Curtin? Because I know people say that he's one of the best as far as master.
He wrote the Texas Master exam.
That's what I've heard. I've heard something like that.
Yeah, Johnny's a great guy.
Yeah, and in Houston, I went to the plumbing school of Houston for my required courses, because you have to do your 18-hour residential, whatever. And they based their book. It literally says on the booklet, Johnny Curtin's plumbing commercial code class.
You bet.
And it was great. I really recommend, if you can find someone that bases, if they're in your city and they base it off of those teachings, I think it's great, because I think he really nailed it as far as teaching those classes go.
Oh, no, he's phenomenal. No, I think Johnny's amazing.
Is he still doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's still teaching.
Yeah, teaching.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to try to get those classes as soon as possible, because I don't know, how long Johnny plans on doing it.
You bet.
I'm sure he's going to try to stick around as long as he can. But I definitely have heard some great things. And those are the type of people I want to look for, look and learn from. I can definitely learn from them.
Oh, no, we can learn from everybody.
For sure. Especially.
So who have you been taking continuing education through?
PHCC is the company.
You bet.
We go over to Pearland, pretty much the same location every single year. It's like in January. And they've had some good, some bad, I'd say. They've had different instructors, so it hasn't been too consistent. But they try to do what they can. You can tell that there's people that they're passionate about teaching and trying to do it.
And there's some that are there to make the money.
There's some that are there to make the money. Correct.
Yeah. I know. And I don't mean just PHCC. I love PHCC.
Yeah.
A lot of different companies are like that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. Roland Cortez, which is the one who's kind of running the plumbing school of Houston, I think he shares that mentality as Johnny Curtin of trying to make it as engaging as possible, trying to help out as many people as possible. I've asked him questions to this day of like, "Hey, Roland, I have this question. What do you think?" And he'll more than happy, advise me however he can. And I think that's great to have in a trade, because sometimes, unfortunately, when you get people, those older guys, older gentlemen, they sometimes don't want to help. They're like, I've already helped people. I don't really want to help as much.
Yeah, blows my mind.
Yeah.
I've been doing this 45 years. I still love helping people.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think that some people unfortunately have a misconception that plumbers are these, angry dudes that, are just angry all the time and don't want to help out. There are definitely people there, but there's definitely people that are willing to help out.
So have you got an apprentice working with you yet?
Not yet.
So it's just you and your dad right now?
Just me and my dad, yeah. Unfortunately, we're trying to get the volume going to where I can get an apprentice going as well and pay him competitively, and teach him however I can. I think that I would be a great teacher. I think that I would do my very best to secure his future in the plumbing trade, whether he stays with us, whether he goes with another company. I think that it's, again, a huge responsibility, but I'm up to the challenge, and I'm looking forward to that moment. So I'm just doing what I can to try to learn as much as I can, refresh my mind as far as the examinations go, because if you don't practice it, unfortunately, it gets lost. Not everything that you do in the examination, you're going to do every day. You're not going to sit there with your calculator sometimes and, do your rolling 45s and all that, especially being someone in residential. But it's definitely great to have if you ever are in that situation where you need to know how to do a rolling 45, a regular offset, how to do it. I think that's important.
Oh, it is. It's great stuff. And it's funny because, and I love this because You're an open shop plumber. You're not union. I didn't even know what a rolling offset was when I was open shop. When I got in the union, it's something they talk about a lot. So I figured A squared, B squared, C squared.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can figure all this out. And it's funny because just in the field or in an open shop field, most plumbers don't even know what a rolling offset is. And, you know, they understand the 45 degree offset. They understand 22 and a half, but a rolling offset, but most of them don't even know how to multiply what fractions to get your numbers.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that you're open shop and you're like, look, you know, you got to understand rolling offsets and this and that.
Yeah.
So I enjoy hearing that.
I also like also teaching people how to do multiplication division, because some people, they didn't do good in school. To be honest, if you're a plumber, most likely you did not do very well in school for the most part. There are
you say that, but you did great.
Yeah, but for the most part, there are people that, you know, this wasn't their first choice.
You bet.
And so I really feel like, as simple as it may sound, how to do long multiplication, I try to teach people whenever I can. I've done a couple videos on that, and I don't know if it helps or not, but I know that maybe there's someone that they don't want to comment anything or say anything, but maybe they're watching the video and they're like, oh, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Because, again, it's just one of those things that you might not do every day. You know, we have technology now where
it's right here in our pocket.
Buttons.
The answer is right there in our pocket.
And people tell me all the time, they're like, just use a calculator, just use a calculator. In your exam, you can't pull out your phone, you know, you have to know how to do it, you know, and you never know. What if your phone loses charge? What are you going to do? Just sit there and wait for it to charge, find the nearest outlet, you know?
You bet.
So I think that there's stuff that might seem simple, it might seem silly, but it's a necessary skill to know.
So what did you major in college?
Marketing major. And the reason why I did marketing is the entrepreneurship electives that I could take. So marketing, there's not a lot of jobs in marketing because it's very competitive, and not a lot of people are looking for marketing as far as
I
jobs
think you're
goes.
wrong. I think everybody should be looking for marketing.
Well, there's a different degree. There's digital marketing now, which is entirely different than the marketing that I'm doing. Digital marketing is more of like the modern age stuff. So I'm doing more of the marketing, like kind of the old fashioned, understanding how people work. And then digital marketing, they do more of the actual implementation of it, like how to create the designs, the logos, all that stuff, which my sister, she actually graduated from University of Houston as well with digital media. So I did marketing.
Your older sister or younger sister?
Older sister. Older sister, yeah. So
and what is she doing now? What is she doing with that?
She's working at a company called HCSS, Heavy Construction Software Systems. They're located right there in my area. And they do pretty much horizontal software systems for horizontal construction. So all the roads and bridges and all that great stuff. Very neat company. We've done plumbing for them, actually, before my sister worked there. And I always told my dad, if I don't end up doing plumbing, I want to work for this company.
Right.
They've been years on ends. They've been one of the best companies to work for in Texas.
Cool.
And I just thought it was cool because they also have a lot of people that do like technology stuff. So like the softwares and all that stuff. And they're nerds. Like they're the definitions of geeks. You know, they have like their Tetris on the walls and all that stuff. Crazy things that they have. And they have a slide coming from like the second floor to the first floor. And I told my dad, I was like, that'd be cool to do. And my sister ended up there. I don't know how she ended up there, but she ended up there. And I told her, I was like, I think you're in a great company. And luckily she is using her degree, which is everyone's concern, right? Am I going to use my degree? And what am I doing here?
85% of people graduating college don't.
Yeah. And as far as my journey in college goes, I wanted to just learn the entrepreneurship aspect of it without going through the entrepreneurship program. The reason is it's a great program. They're ranked number 1 in the nation for several years in a row now. You know, they beat UT. They beat all those people.
Well, they can't beat them in football. They got to beat them in something.
Easy, Roger.
Sorry,
easy.
I'm a Longhorn fan. Okay.
It's been a very bad couple of years as far as sports go. But I went to go talk to the person that was in charge of the entrepreneurship program. And the way that the program is structured, as far as my knowledge goes, from what I got from that conversation, is they have patents, and then they get the students to create businesses based off of those patents. So they're kind of molding you to own a business in a way. But again, I'm a very creative person. I like to have my creative freedom. So I wasn't too I wasn't jumping on to the idea of making someone else's idea something big. You know, if I'm going to do something, it's going to be my ideas, it's going to be my hard work and all that. If I have to go the long route and struggle along the way, it's something that I want to do personally. And but I did want to learn entrepreneurship because they have great professors, and so that's why I went to marketing. They had a lot of open electives that you could take, and so I was like, I'm going to do entrepreneurship electives, and I've done anywhere from content creating class, which now they have that, to entrepreneurship itself as a class, and I've learned great stuff from those classes for sure. Those are my favorite classes, entrepreneurship.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what's the greatest thing that you learned about marketing that will help your dad's plumbing company?
Greatest thing that I've learned from marketing is understanding why people choose what they choose. There's decisions that people make every day, but understanding why they do it. And I had to kind of step back and see it from my own perspective as well. Anywhere from this Apple Watch, why did I buy it? They got my money. Why did they get my money? Is it because it's Apple? Is it because it was going to help my life? Which honestly, I just look at the time. I don't even use all the features.
Right.
You know, it's just, I feel like that's one of the greatest lessons that I've learned is that there's a reason why someone bought something. Maybe it was impulsive, but why was it impulsive? Was it something, the colors, this and that? And I think that in plumbing, you have decisions to make as far as the consumer goes as who you're going to choose. You know, if you're a consumer that does this research, you're probably going to call 3 or 4 people for a bigger project before you make the decision. But what's going to make you stand out? Why are you going to choose company X over company Y? And understanding that behavior, I think, is something that I've learned in college that has definitely kind of helped me a little bit more. And to kind of spread the secret sauce to you, it's all about the relationships and the way relationships that I'm able to create. I like to have conversations with my customers and kind of understand where they're coming from. There's times when I've done stuff that I probably shouldn't have done for free, but I've done for free. I probably got in more trouble than what I could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. Not from my father, but as far as you try to help them out and you end up there hours. Yeah. You know, we've all been there.
Okay, so I like this because you said you don't know why you bought that. You don't know why you bought this or that. And you said it's relationships, but you didn't have a relationship with Apple.
Correct.
Unless you knew Steve Jobs or something.
Correct.
There's 2 things that make people buy,
mm-hmm.
or 2 directions that lead them. What are they? Emotion and logic. I knew you knew it. As soon as I said it, you're like, oh, that's where he's going.
Yeah.
But I like the way that you thought about that because relationships are emotional. Most people buy from emotion.
Correct. That's the leading.
Most people don't buy logically. Correct. You didn't sit down and think, no, wait a minute. This watch cost a shit ton of money.
Correct.
But I need it.
Right.
Because I'm going to use the health. I'm going to use the phone. I'm going to use the tracker. I'm going to use this to count my steps. You didn't make a list and say, okay, logically, this is worth it. Mm-hmm. You walked in and you said, man, that Apple Watch looks cool.
Yeah, right on, man.
Okay, but I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
And man, I wish more plumbing companies realize stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, you hit it on the head. If I can build a relationship with people, mm-hmm. I call what I do relationship marketing. Mm-hmm. I build relationships with people. I do it through social media.
Correct.
But I build relationships with people. I teach them, I educate them, I help them, but I also make them feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, Roger didn't make me feel stupid teaching me how to do this. He made me feel like I can do it. And notice I kept saying the word feel. He made me feel like. He made me feel like.
All right.
And that's what, to me, if more residential service companies understood things like that, sales would be so much better.
Yeah, for sure. I think that people have a bad conception of salespeople because sometimes it gets too computerized, I would say, or too systemic in a way where they say the exact questions every single time and they're not tailoring to the customer's mm-hmm. needs. They're tailoring to what they believe analytically is going to make them right. So they're trying to use the logic route opposed to the emotion route, where you should be tailoring more to the emotional route, not in a negative way. Some people are probably going to hear that and say, well, salesman that tries to emotionally, that's he's a scammer. No, it's what pain do they have at the moment, and how can you help resolve that pain? You know, do they have a toilet that doesn't flush? Why, you know, what can you do to help it? Is it a rebuild? Is it a new toilet? What is going on? And again, in college, I learned people do business with people, not companies. Like you said, you pretty much nailed it. I didn't buy it from Apple. Maybe, well, I bought the Meta glasses. Okay.
I got them too.
And this is the thing.
Do you ever use them?
I use them all the time.
Do you? I love that. Okay, that's good though.
Yeah, I do because I recently bought them, to be fair. So of course I'm using them right now. I don't know what's going to happen in a month from now, but as far as right now goes,
I love wearing them to trade shows. I love doing things with them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty neat, and I think this is a great technology, amazing. But I went the logic route with that purchase.
Good.
I sat down with my girlfriend and I was like, okay, this cost, again, a shit ton of money. Why do I need it? I have an iPhone. I'm already recording, but why do I need the Meta glasses? And so I was like, okay, well, I do point of view content sometimes. This records audio. I can search something up as well. Can I do something different? But then when I go to the store and I go to Best Buy and there's a worker there kind of just walking around and he's like, oh, these glasses are great, man. And he starts asking me about my content. He starts looking me up and he's like, dude, your content's amazing. And he very geniusly says, I think these glasses would be great for what you would do.
You were sold.
Right there. Mm-hmm. I was on the fence. When I went there, I didn't know if I wanted to do it because I didn't know if the style was going to be good for me. You know, I'm that style guy as well. I like to look
listen
nice.
To what you just said. When you went there, you didn't know.
Correct.
You had made a logical decision, but you hadn't decided.
Yes. Correct.
But this salesperson built a relationship with you.
Correct.
In 5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Yep.
It doesn't take long.
No.
You communicate with people.
Correct.
See, I went to Best Buy to buy computers whenever I first opened my company. Mm-hmm. And I walked in. Me and my wife at the time walk in. We go back to the computer section. We're looking. Guy walks up. Says, can I help you? I said, yeah, we're looking for a computer for our business. He says, okay, let me know when you find one you want. And he walks off. Okay. Mm-hmm. About a month later, I walk into a training class, best practice group for plumbers. And I walk in and they call in this guy named Nick and say, Nick, come up and go through your presentation about it's your credibility statement. Mm. So when you walk up to the door, so he walks up, pretends to knock on the door, and the girl says, hello, opens the door. He says, ma'am, I'm Nick from Nick's Plumbing. Mm-hmm. Let's change that. I'm Nick from Fred's Plumbing. Have you used us before? Well, he says, and he turns and looks at all the plumbers' room. He says, I know she hadn't. I've already looked it up. So she says, no. And he says, do you mind if I take just a moment and tell you why I got into plumbing, why I came to work at Nick's Plumbing, and why I continue to work here? Hmm. She says, sure, go right ahead. He says, well, or at Fred's Plumbing. Sorry.
Yeah.
He says, so you know, I'm Nick. I came to work at Fred's Plumbing I got into plumbing because my best friend and one night told me about his 3 older brothers and his father that were plumbers. So he talked about how much they loved it and how much they really enjoyed what they did and how much money they made. And I wasn't really good in school. I mean, I was okay. I just did what I had to do to pass. So when I got out, I called one of his brothers and said, hey, can you help me get a job in plumbing? And he did. He says, and so I got in plumbing and I worked for a few different companies. But then I found out about Fred's Plumbing. And Fred had a great reputation. And I saw the way he talked about Fred specialized in customer service, taking care of people. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to come to work for Fred, because I love taking care of people. And I came to work here, and they hired me, and they gave me an opportunity. But then after being here, I realized Fred spends about $10,000 a year training each and every plumber at this company. So we get trained to become better at what we do. Fred is spending his money to make us better plumbers. And Fred has the best warranties in the whole city. So before I walk into your house today, knowing all that, you understand that I'm going to do a good job for you, and you don't have anything to worry about. And I'm sitting in the back of the room, and the first thing I thought was about Best Buy. a month before.
Okay.
If we had walked into Best Buy and this guy comes up, says, "Can I help you?" It's like, "Yeah, we're looking for computers." He said, "Do you mind if I take just a minute and tell you why I work in the computer section? Can I tell you why I came to work at Best Buy and why I'm still here?" And they're like, "Absolutely." Well, I'm a computer geek. I was a geek in high school. I was one of those nerd kids that I wanted to play with computers. I was a gamer. I wanted to learn to code. I wanted to learn to do all that. So after I graduated, I started looking at what would be the best place for me to work, knowing what I know. And I researched Best Buy, and I thought, you know what? They carry so many amazing brands. So I came here and I applied and I got the job. And I was so happy, and I love coming here because they're about customer service. They want to take care of us. And then Best Buy started investing in me. I know about Hewlett-Packard. I know about Dell. I know about Apple. I know about this. I know about this. I know about this. And they continue investing in me. And they want to make sure that every customer walks in here understands everything I know about computers and can convey that to them and help them make an educated decision. So before I show you around, do you mind if I ask you some questions? Because I want to make sure I get you the computer you're looking for. I'm like, dude, you just tell me what to buy. I'm good.
Yeah.
That is a complete mindset shift.
Correct.
And it's taking just a minute to build a relation. This video is sponsored by High Level. We've partnered up with High Level because we believe this is the best all-in-one sales and marketing platform to help you grow your business. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield.
Correct. And you being someone that's been in the trade for so long, do you feel like we're losing that in the trade, or do you feel like it's getting better as far as the sales and relationships part of it goes?
I think a lot of trades companies are spending a lot of money teaching their people sales, which is all about the presentation. I get that. But I think that emotional intelligence is something that we should teach people more. Mm-hmm. Teach them to build that relationship. Teach them empathy, sympathy, communication. Teach them body language. Mm-hmm. Don't just sit there the whole time and say, "Well, look, you want to buy this or not?" that doesn't work. So, things like that are things that the more we can teach people, or really maybe it's not even teach, find people that truly care about people.
Correct.
And I think you're going to find a good plumber. Correct.
I think it's definitely something that is born with at least the start, at least the seed is there, and you can help nourish it and cultivate it to something great. And I think that it is something that should be taught a little bit more, because I feel like people tend to lose a little bit more trust in plumbers. I feel like they're not feeling their benefit of getting a plumber to their home, which is unfortunate because we're there to help them, especially, how the OG motto goes, we're here to protect the health of the nation. And I was seeing on TikTok the other day, I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but this lady, she got a faucet replaced, a $47 brass faucet, and it already had the male adapters, and it was just 2 male adapters and cut it on. And I think they charged her almost $1,300. And she goes on social media and says, "Did they scam me? Did they, plumbers, is this right? It feels wrong." If you have a customer that has doubts about the work that you did after you did it, something is not right.
You didn't provide value.
Correct.
You provided a product.
Correct. And that's the thing. People don't realize that it all goes with communication. Sometimes your price doesn't matter if you're able to communicate well why it's doing it, and if it's a logical reason why. Again, consumers, they're not intelligent.
You bet.
They know exactly what's going on. They
got phones in their pockets just like we do. They can look up prices of anything.
And unfortunately, sometimes they're like, "What should this cost?" Which isn't the most accurate statement in the entire world. Not. But if you're a plumber and someone that's able, or not even a plumber, anyone in sales that's selling anything, and you can able to communicate effectively, this is why we're doing it, this is the problem, this is how we're bridging the gap to make it work for you. And if we can teach that more and kind of implement that, I think people are going to be much more successful in the trade, and consumers are going to be a lot more happy with the decisions that they made, which is important at the end of the day, because again, people are losing trust because there's no communication.
Well, you got to remember too, they've either been ripped off by another plumber, another electrical company. I've got a story about a garage door guy tried to rip me off. And I basically told him, look, you can leave now. He said, well, you got to pay me my service fee. I said, I wasn't told about a service fee. He said, well, we have one. I said, well, I've got a Smith & Wesson. So you're either leaving or I'm going to shoot you because I've asked you twice not to leave. Yeah. If I ask you a third time, it's going to be while I'm squeezing the trigger.
Right.
And he looked at me and he saw 2 water heaters in my garage. He said, that's pretty bad coming from a serviceman. I said, well, I provide a service. I don't screw people over. And that's what you're trying to do.
Right on.
The spring that he told me, I can't even touch that spring because it's going to break. This was 7 years ago. That spring's still in my garage door. And it ain't broke yet.
Yeah.
And I raise my garage door every time I take a motorcycle out. So, yeah, it's crazy.
You a Harley guy?
I've got a Harley and I've got an American Iron Horse Texas chopper, and I love both of them. Take a minute and tell everybody who you are, what you do, the name of your company, how they can get in touch with you, and what all you're doing on social media.
Right. My name is Byron Gutierrez, once again, and I'm a journeyman plumber in the state of Texas. I'm 22 years old at the time, so I got my journeyman at the age of 21, which is, I feel like, a great milestone. And
it is. I'm
going to say it as much as I possibly can. Work for Byron Plumbing Services based out of Houston, Texas. We do residential plumbing, and pretty much you can reach us on byron-plumbing.com, or you can also call us on our number. But I really recommend you guys to go look at the website because it tells a little bit more of our story. You're able to contact us, go straight to me, all that great stuff. So I think that if you guys want to know a little bit more about our company, that's a great place to start.
Cool deal. Now, what are you doing on social media?
Social media, I do content creating for plumbing mostly. I like to tie in a little bit more of daily life as a plumber as well, because people don't realize what goes into plumbing, especially being in Houston. It's a little bit tougher because you travel a lot, like we mentioned as well as in Dallas. 50% of it is traveling, but I do get to meet different people, and I get to do all these things and work in different houses and be different situations. And it's a little bit tougher to gain traction because there's some people that they're in these commercial, industrial, huge things. But again, every plumber has this journey, and I think that residential has its own beauty as well. And so I really like to showcase kind of my work, and I've learned a lot from other plumbers as well. And I've gotten some amazing comments from other people as well. But I will say that it's helped me become a better plumber. I'll say social media has definitely helped me become a better plumber, because every time I post a video, either someone learns from me or I learn from someone else. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Granted, they could probably ask it in a nicer way, right? But, you know, I'm not there to
There's a lot of jerks out there.
Yeah, but again, sometimes it makes sense what they say. Oh, I should have done that, you know. And I've talked to my dad before, and I told him, hey, Dad, you know, why don't we do this differently? I'm like, well, I've done this like this. And I'm like, well, we could do this differently. And I think that's great. The fact that you're able to learn from one another, and you're able to learn from people that have been doing it for many years, that have been specializing in this. And as far as my social media goes, I like to teach people. That's my main thing. If I can teach someone how to replace a faucet, I can teach someone the math part of plumbing, if I can teach someone all those different things, I think that for me is great, because I'm providing value to someone. One way or another, I'm providing value. And that's really what I want to do as far as my social media is involved. And
you're going to start doing some Spanish too.
I'm going to start doing some Spanish.
You need to.
I need to do some Spanish.
I got on to you for that last night.
Yep, during dinner. And you showed me, and you kind of whooped me out of the ocean with your Spanish with the app. I think that was pretty cool. That's pretty
neat.
Mi
español es muy good looking.
Muy good looking. Yeah, and definitely think you have a very good reason for requesting that.
Absolutely.
And
I'm not telling you just because, hey, man, try something different.
Yeah.
I see an opportunity for you.
Now, would you recommend the same page?
Probably not. I'd probably do
the drain domain en español. That's the thing. I don't
come up with a name that maybe they're looking for. I don't know that drain domain translates very well.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, definitely. So there's a lady that helps us out around the house as well, and she's like, are you ever going to do Spanish videos? She's asked me before. She's like, my husband, he's interested in all that stuff. There's people that they're just interested, and there's people that they just want to learn as well. And I would do it. I've been trying to get my dad into it, but he's like, that's your stuff. You're the social media guy. I'm the plumber guy, which I understand as well. But definitely something that I want to start implementing as well. And it starts, you know,
you could get him involved a little bit where you literally just set up a camera and say, Dad, I want you to just turn and look at the camera like you're frustrated, like you're happy, you know, turn and look at, then you can make a video where you're doing something and say like, you know, so, hey Dad, what do you think about that? And then you can clip him. He ain't even got to say anything. That could be cute. Where can they find you on your social platforms?
The Drain Domain, at the Drain Domain altogether. It's super simple. I actually rebranded myself. So in the beginning we were Byron Plumbing, but then there's a lot of those hateful comments. So I didn't want people to get the wrong idea, because sometimes people read those comments and they're like, oh, well, this guy's garbage, stuff. So I did rebrand for that reason. But I like to do something every Thursdays as far as my work goes. Whenever I can, when I'm not in school, I like to do a free service for people in the Houston area that may not be able to pay for, you know, plumbing, because there are people that they need help in plumbing, and unfortunately they can't spend however amount of money for plumbers. So one of my things was I wanted to help people and use my license for good, so that they at least have someone qualified doing the work. And again, it's my good deed of the week, and hopefully it resonates well with them.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good for you. Real quick, tell me about the best day you've ever had plumbing.
There was one day when me and my dad, we were both separated. It was one of the first times that we were separated, and we got swamped with work. We probably had 4 to 5 jobs each, and we're just going. And it was great because I really got to prove to myself, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to be on my own. I have my Journeyman license. I can do this. And it was a great experience to have, I would say, because I was able to prove to myself, I was able to prove to the customers, I was able to prove to my father that, like, hey, Dad, you did a good job with me. I have a lot to learn still, but you've done great. And the customers, I mean, we want Byron Sr., you know. Well, today's Byron Jr., and Byron Jr. is going to do the job, and he's going to get it done. And I would say that was a great day for me, because, again, it's just something that I had to get out of my comfort zone, and it's kind of like baby steps, but it's kind of one of those things like the birds that they throw their babies out and you just got to let them fly, you know. And I think that's one of the best days that I've had, for sure.
So tell me about the worst day you've ever had plumbing.
I had a faucet that I had to install, and it was a very nice faucet, thousands of dollars worth, the existing one. And they wanted to replace it with a Kohler, a couple $100, totally different. And it was completely corroded, so I wasn't able to just simply unthread it. Had to cut some things off and do all those things. Had the customer right behind my shoulder telling me, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I'm just trying to get this off. And that's one of the most frustrating things, especially one of the first times that you're doing it, because you're trying to get the job done. You're trying to do it efficiently and be careful with the countertop, be careful with all those things. And it was definitely something that I had to have a lot of patience. And I learned that day that you're going to have a lot of patience in plumbing, residential.
Yeah, don't get in any rush.
Yeah, correct.
Well, Byron, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Roger.